We never touched a white man before. The three Apache sisters told the young farmer. The wind carried the scent of dust and wild sage as the young farmer rode across the valley, the evening sun burning gold behind him. Luke Warren had spent 3 days on horseback, chasing a trail that no map could show. He was a man searching for more than land. Something in his chest had been hollow for years. Something no plow or prayer could fill. The locals had whispered of a place where 3 Apache sisters lived alone, untamed and proud, far beyond the line where white men dared to ride. Some said they were healers. Others called them witches. Luke didn't believe in curses or miracles, but curiosity had always been his undoing. When he reached the wooden barn that stood against the dying light, he pulled the reins and let his horse rest. The structure looked old but alive, surrounded by silence that felt almost sacred. Then, as the door creaked open, he saw them, 3 women standing in the doorway, the setting sun framing their forms like spirits carved from flame and copper. They were unlike anyone he had ever seen. Their long dark hair hung in braids tied with beads and leather. Their clothes were made from soft brown hide, fringed and worn, shaped to their movements like second skin. The eldest, Tala, stood in front, tall, calm, and dangerous, her eyes sharp as flint. Beside her, Naira crossed her arms, her expression unreadable but filled with quiet fire. The youngest, Sani, watched him with cautious curiosity, her face softer, eyes deep and searching. Luke removed his hat slowly, bowing his head in respect. "Evenin'," he said in a low voice. The silence stretched. Finally, Tala spoke, her words steady but cold. "You've ridden far from your kind, white man." "I'm not here to harm anyone," Luke replied. "Just looking for water and maybe a trade." Naira's tone cut through the air. "Trade? What could you trade that we'd want?" Her eyes swept over him, from his weathered boots to the rifle on his saddle. There was no fear in her gaze, only judgment. Luke lifted his saddlebag. "I've got salt, some grain, maybe a few tools. That's all." For a moment, none of them moved. Then Tala tilted her head slightly and gestured toward the trough. "Water your horse, but when the shadows reach the barn wall, you ride away." Luke nodded, careful with every movement. He led his horse to the trough, feeling their eyes on his back like the weight of the sun itself. He tried to speak lightly. "Heard the Apache used to raise the strongest horses in the territory." Naira's reply came sharp and swift. "We did. Before men like you fenced our rivers and took the grass from under their feet." Her words cut deeper than he expected. "I'm not like them," Luke said softly, still looking down. "I came here to start over, not take what's not mine." Tala watched him in silence, her expression unreadable. Then she turned away, entering the barn. "Stay till the sun dies," she said. "Then you go." Inside, the barn smelled of leather and smoke. Pelts hung from beams and jars of herbs lined the shelves. The sisters worked together, silent, efficient, like they shared one heartbeat. Luke offered to help without asking. When he picked up a bundle of hides, Tala gave him a cautious glance but didn't stop him. Sani watched his hands as he worked, gentle, deliberate, never careless. For a stranger, he carried himself like someone who understood respect. Hours passed. The fire in the corner burned low. Naira finally broke the silence. "Why'd you really come here?" Luke hesitated. "Because I heard there were people still living honest with the land. I wanted to see what that looks like." Sani smiled faintly, though she quickly hid it. "You came to look," she said quietly, "not to listen." Luke met her gaze. "Then teach me to listen." Tala's hand froze mid-motion. She turned, eyes narrowing. "You talk like a man who doesn't know where he stands. This ground you're standing on, it remembers. It remembers every man who thought he could cross it without paying a price." Luke's voice dropped low. "Maybe I'm here to pay it." The barn grew silent again, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Tala's stare softened, just for a heartbeat. "Sit," she said finally. So he sat by the fire with them, listening to their voices tell stories of the old days, of rivers that once sang, of horses that ran free without fear of fences, of families scattered like dust. Luke didn't interrupt. He listened until he felt his chest ache with the weight of what was lost. But far beyond the barn, unseen by any of them, the faint glow of torches flickered across the dark ridge. Men who had followed. Luke's trail, greedy for the land the sisters guarded. The peace that had grown like a spark in the dark would soon be tested by flame. As the night deepened, Tala looked at Luke one last time before the fire died out. "We never touched a white man before," she said in a voice softer than wind. Not his world, not his pain. Maybe tonight that changed. Luke looked into her eyes, the reflection of firelight trembling in both. "And maybe," he whispered, "it needed to." Outside, the coyote cried to the moon. the first sign that something was coming. The dawn rose blood red over the hills, the light trembling through the dust like smoke. Luke awoke to the sound of hoofbeats in the distance. Faint, but wrong. Tala was already standing at the door, bow in hand. Naira's eyes followed the horizon, her face tense. "They're coming," she said. "Riders." Luke's gut turned. He knew who they were before he even saw them. Bannister's men. Claim jumpers and thieves who had followed him from the valley. They believed he'd found gold in Apache land. They'd kill anyone who stood between them and greed. "There's still time to run," Luke said, grabbing his gear. Tala shook her head. "This is our land. We don't run." The three sisters moved like the wind itself. Precise, silent, determined. Sani gathered arrows. Naira poured sand into a line of gunpowder near the gate, and Tala's eyes never left the ridge. Luke loaded his rifle, heart pounding. "You fight like soldiers," he said. "We fight like women who have nothing left to lose," Tala answered. The riders appeared, dust trailing behind them, rifles glinting in the light. There were 8 of them. The leader, Bannister, spat from his saddle. "You led me right to it, farmer," he shouted. "Now stand aside." Luke stepped forward. "There's nothing here for you." Bannister laughed, raising his gun. "Then you won't mind if we look for ourselves." The first shot cracked the morning silence. The sisters moved instantly. Arrows flew, hitting with deadly precision. Luke fired his rifle, the recoil jarring his shoulder. The barnyard erupted in chaos. Horses screamed. Gunfire echoed. Smoke filled the air. Naira hit a rider square in the chest. Tala's arrow sliced through the air, striking another's leg. Luke dropped one man with a clean shot to the arm, then ducked behind a barrel as splinters exploded around him. Sani ran toward the trough, grabbed a flaming torch, and threw it at the wagon. The explosion of fire sent men scattering. One lunged at her, blade raised. Luke tackled him, wrestling in the dirt until the knife nicked his arm. Blood ran down his sleeve, but he didn't stop. Sani screamed, grabbing the man's own pistol and striking him across the head. The fight felt endless, but at last the final gunshot faded into silence. The attackers lay scattered on the ground, groaning, defeated, and broken. Smoke curled into the dawn sky. Luke dropped to his knees, breathless, his shirt torn and soaked in sweat. Tala stood before him, bow still drawn, eyes fierce yet calm. "You could have run," she said quietly. Luke looked up at her. Didn't feel right. She lowered her weapon, walking closer. "Now you know what it means to stand on land that remembers." He nodded, his voice trembling. "Then I'll remember too." Naira tied a strip of cloth around his bleeding arm, her fingers steady. "You will heal," she said softly. "But not all wounds are on the skin." The fire crackled low as the wind shifted. For the first time, Tala's voice lost its edge. "If you speak of us," she warned, "no one will believe you." Luke smiled faintly. "Then it'll stay between us. A story for the wind." He mounted his horse, pain etched in his movements but peace in his eyes. He looked back one last time. The 3 sisters standing tall against the rising sun, their hair whipping in the wind, leather skirts swaying with the breath of the earth itself. As he rode away, Sani whispered, "He's different." Tala's eyes stayed on the horizon. "No," she said softly. "He just remembered what it means to belong." The wind carried her words across the open plains, weaving them into legend. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the land exhaled. For one fleeting moment, the earth, the sisters, and the stranger were bound together by something older than blood, stronger than time. And thus began the whisper that lived long after they were gone. The tale of the 3 Apache sisters and the white farmer. They once let touch their world,